San Francisco is backing off its controversial Equitable Grading Initiative after massive blowback, and Trump vows to take action after a transgender athlete won medals at a California high school track competition. Join us now to discuss is Erika Sanzi, Director of Outreach for Defending Education. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's start with San Francisco Unified School District is officially, apparently at this point, kind of delaying its Grading for Equity initiative after facing backlash. You had parents here who were upset. You had educators, teachers who were upset. You had, of course, critics who were upset at this as well. Kind of walk us through this policy and what triggered this type of response.
The idea behind equitable grading is that you only give a grade based on mastery. What do they know? And so what it means is that things like lateness, effort, participation, attendance, classwork, homework, none of that will be part of the grade. And then it also allows for often unlimited retakes. And so it's very unpopular. On the one hand, I will say that when kids are getting bonus points because they brought in lots of boxes of Kleenex that year, like that doesn't tell us anything about how much math they know. On the other hand, telling kids that all of these habits don't matter, I think is really, really bad for them in terms of creating habits for the future. It's very unpopular, and even some very high-profile progressives from California, like Representative Ro Khanna, they came out publicly against this immediately.
I was reading on this, and maybe I read this wrong. Something like an 80 could be considered an A. It was just weird how they structured the grades.
Yeah, there was also a different grading scale. Yeah. I think you are right, which is also controversial. But I think a big part of what bothers people is they basically say none of your habits, right, would affect your grade. And so kind of sends the message as if, life, you can have unlimited retakes. Doesn't matter if you're late. Right. Doesn't matter if you turn in your homework. And so it's really unpopular, even though it does make sense in the sense that you don't want a student that doesn't know any math, but is really, really conscientious and does all of the good habits, right? You don't want them to have an A in math because that also tells us that they know a lot more than they do. So it's not as black and white as it seems right now, but it has turned out to be pretty bad policy in a lot of places because it has bad unintended consequences. And that's largely about basically telling students that like nothing that you do matters. And so in terms of, again, good habits. And so, it's been squashed for now. We'll see if they decide to bring it back up again or maybe try to help the public better understand it.
Well, you're Defending Education, your group released a report this week on how federal funds for schools have been diverted to DEI supporting consultants. Now, how much money are we talking about here? And what is this money being used for?
It depends which one we're talking about. So if we're just talking about consultants in the classroom in general, that's like over $100 million. But if we're talking about federal money that has been used by districts for these initiatives, that's closer to the $20 million figure as far as what we're able to document. And the problem with that is Title I, for example, like that's money that is specifically for low-income kids. Yeah. But what we've seen some school districts decide to divert that money in ways that's like not even really legal because it's used for students who are of a specific sex or of a specific race. And you can't do that with public dollars. But I think it's also frustrating to families when they're thinking, we've got money for low-income students here, and we're diverting it to things like, and this is literally the name of the program, woke kindergarten, and other programs that haven't really shown any evidence of helping students.
Well, I want to get to something real quick. This is President Trump has vowed to impose large-scale fines on California after a transgender athlete won a high school girls track event. Do you think these federal fines are going to make any sort of difference here, especially in California?
I mean, Gavin Newsom said on a podcast about a month ago that he knew this is unfair. So I have to assume that this is going to make a difference. Although, again, we just saw this in California. We just saw a softball team situation in Minnesota. And so we're seeing all of these, unfair things continue. So the threats are out there, but I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. I would think that the threats of this would make a difference. And the governor himself in California has come out and said this is unfair, but I guess we're going to have to wait and see.
All right, Erika Sanzi, Director of Outreach for Defending Education. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a great weekend.